Get more reaction to the president's State of the Union address. Joining us right now with his reaction is Congressman Steny Hoyer. He's a Democrat from Maryland, and he serves as the House Minority Whip. And, sir, it's great to see you today.
Good to be with you, Becky.
You know, the reaction, at least from some of the early reads on business and Wall Street, is that this was a shot across the bow when it comes to business, that there will be no middle ground, and that this is the reason that Daley left the administration. What do you say to that?
Well, I don't think that's accurate, that's why Bill Daley left the administration. And first of all, I think the president very much wants to work with business. I think this speech was a call to compete, a call to grow jobs here in America. We have an agenda, make it in America. He talked about manufacturing in America. It's the same deal. We've lost 9 million manufacturing jobs. That has shrunk the middle class. It's undermined people's opportunities, and the president's saying, look, we got to do better. We got to bring them home. We got to have the jobs created here. We got to expand our own economy and double and triple exports, as he pointed out. So that I think it was not a shot across the bow. I think it was a call to compete, a call to focus on American jobs and to focus on government policies dealing with taxation and regulation that would create an environment that would empower the manufacturing sector and the business sector to expand. So I think it was certainly at the end, the way he ended his speech was a call for cooperation, a call for working together. Take the example of our armed forces who have a mission and who understand that mission needs to be accomplished by each one of them doing their job. And I think that's what this speech was all about. I think it was a good speech, and it was a call to action, a call to compete, a call to make a better America.
There certainly were some elements that some business people are going to walk away and say, that's great news. We had Andrew Liveris on earlier today, and he did like what he heard in terms of some of the manufacturing aspects.
Well, you know, he wrote a book, Make It in America.
But Congressman Hoyer, listen to this line on Wall Street. I will not go back to the days when Wall Street was allowed to play by its own set of rules. So if you're a big bank or financial institution, you are no longer allowed to make risky bets with your customers' deposits. That's a line I agree with, too. But he goes on to say, you're required to write out a living will that details exactly how you'll pay the bills if you fail, because the rest of us aren't bailing you out ever again. Now, again, it's not the message itself that is the problem as much as the way it's said, with that incendiary aspect, reminding people that banks are the bad guys. We had to bail them out. We're never doing it again. And that, to me, seems like there is a certain amount of rhetoric that is stirring things up, not bringing people together, but driving them apart.
You know, there's a lot of tough rhetoric, and we've seen in these Republican debates for a long period of time. I think if it's perceived as tough rhetoric, I think it's honest rhetoric, that we want to make sure that we don't fall into the position we were in the last administration. I voted for the so-called bailout. I believed that President Bush was correct, that we had to stabilize the financial sector, but it cost us a lot of money, and it hurt a lot of people. And the president's saying we ought not to go down that road again. That's clearly what the bank reform is all about. But I'm hopeful that what we hear, not only from the president, but from all of us, is, look, we're in this together. Business, labor, employees, employers, Congress, private sector, we're in this together. This is one country. We have one objective: to be more successful, grow jobs, get our deficit under control, and make sure that future generations have the kind of quality of life that we've enjoyed. And in order to do that, we're going to have to work together. So to the extent that a negative message was heard by some, I regret that. But I think that we ought to look on the positive aspects of the president. I think setting forth an agenda that's an important one for America: growing jobs, getting our fiscal house in order, educating our people, being energy independent. We can do those, and we can do them together.
Hey, Steny, so you mentioned this Republican situation is pretty classic. I know you're watching that at times with with one eyebrow, but you know you play hardball too, and I was saying you've probably been in fights like that too, where you know you got to take the gloves off, and that's what's happening. But from what I read, the Obama administration still is looking at Romney, I think, and still thinks maybe he's going to be the eventual nominee. And I think, you know, his tax release coming out the same day that the president focuses, you know, has Buffett's secretary in the room and everything else. So it is going to be that Romney and sort of his situation is sort of set up as opposed to the president. But I just want to ask you, and I know I can get you to say that, could you possibly say that a guy who pays $3 million in taxes, which is great for the government, and who also gives $3 or $4 million to charity, 15% of his income, that's hard to disparage that guy, isn't it?
Look, the issue is not disparaging one another. The issue that the president raised is, and Warren Buffett raises, is, look, we ought to all pay our fair share. Some of us have been more advantaged than others. Those of us who have been more advantaged, we ought to pay our fair share, right, just as others pay their fair share. What Buffett was talking about, what the president's talking about, is really the disparate treatment between somebody who earns income in one way and somebody who earns it in another, whether it's by the sweat of the brow, sure, or by investments.
But, you know, politics, Danny, and it's going to be a nasty election.
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough. And do you think it's fair to paint someone who was successful but it's just hard for me to understand. This guy, if everybody in the country paid $3 million in taxes and also gave that much money to charity, it'd be a great country. It's just going to be hard to set that up. Joe, it's going to be unfortunate to watch that be a negative.
Joe, if everybody in the country made enough money to pay $3 million in taxes, of course, that would be a great thing. You and I both know that's not the case.
But it's not a zero-sum game either.
The middle class is shrinking, unfortunately, right, and the middle class working people's dollars have been stuck in the mud, while those at the top have done very, very well over the last 10 to 20 years.
Right. But it's not a zero-sum game either, though. It's not a zero-sum game, and wealth can be created, and to set it up as someone doing well is taking it away from someone who's not doing well is disingenuous, and it's not helpful.
Look, Joe, the rhetoric on the Republican side has been very, very, very rough, directed at President Obama. Yeah, this is a tough game. Yes, we do play hardball, but we ought to be honest with one another. And being honest with one another is saying, look, we got a fiscal problem. We have to make investments. We fought 2 wars. We've given tax cuts. We've had a prescription drug bill. We have entitlements we need to look at. We need to get a handle on the deficit. Every honest person that looks at it understands that we have to get additional revenues as well as cut both defense and non-defense and get a handle on entitlements. That's what the president is saying. We need to pay our fair share. And very frankly, we haven't been doing that. And I think one of the reasons the president candidate Romney was
You almost said President Romney. We're gonna get a little soundbite of that. that would be something. You almost got
it. But I did catch myself. You got that.
You did.
The presidential candidate Romney, the reason he didn't want to release his tax returns is
I don't know why.
Because he thinks the American public is not going to be happy with that, right, making so much money. Right. And yes, he's contributed to charity. I think that's laudable. Congratulations to him. I think he's a good person. But very frankly, I don't think he's paying the fair share that Warren Buffett says his secretary is paying of her income. I think that's the issue. I think it's a legitimate issue.
That's a fair issue, Congressman, but that is Congress's fault. He's only taking advantage of the tax laws that exist, and anybody who says, Becky, no, I don't want to pay what's here.
Becky, you'll be interested. You recall 60 Minutes did a program on GE not paying any taxes?
Yeah.
The next leadership meeting, which was the following day, Monday night, that was on a Sunday, we were all sitting around, about 10 of us in the leadership, and they were talking about how awful this was, this, that, and the other. I said, hey, time out, folks. You know what? Nobody said GE was breaking the law.
Right.
They're playing by the rules. They're playing by the rules that we make.
And
You're
it is
absolutely
a call for
right.
reforming taxes across the board.
Absolutely. And I think the president's right.
All right. Well, I agree with you on that. We do need tax reform. Congressman, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Good to be with you.
Thanks, Danny. We'll see you. We're going to need you for the next 8 months and stuff, because it's great having you on.
We're going to need all of us.
Well, that's right. All right.
Thanks.